Alright, I've been requested to show off the way I mounted my body onto this frame. Just to recap, this is a 77 Ford cab, and it is a 4-cylinder Cummins truck. It has a ZF5 5-speed manual out of a small block Ford, and transfer case out of the same truck. And this is all mounted on a Dodge frame. It's a 1997 3/4 ton Dodge Ram frame. So reasons why people would do this would be to do a quick 12 valve, 24 valve drivetrain swap, and literally you're just doing a cab swap. I did not do that because this frame was a 360 V8 gasoline Dodge truck. It was automatic, so there was no good drivetrain parts except for the axles, which ended up going into a different truck. That multicolored blue Dodge plow truck is where those went. Put this together using these parts, not because it was easy, but because it was cheap and I had parts laying around. This cab came from a truck that really was nothing desirable. It was a 2-wheel drive 351 automatic truck. Had a rotted out box, and the frame, it was pretty rusted. It was an upstate New York truck originally. Cab needed a lot of work, but went together good. Well, good enough. Still needs work. So I basically just saved the VIN number in the cab, and this truck was destined for the scrap yard. So don't get all butthurt about it being all custom and changed from original, because really there was nothing original to save but the cab and VIN. Issues that anybody needs to know when they do something along the lines of this. These Dodge frames are high in the front and high in the back and low in the middle. The bodies on the Dodge are very tall, so they don't sit up on top of the frame like a Ford body does. They kind of sit around the frame, so the doors and the rockers extend a lot lower than the Ford would. Same thing with the bed. So that is one thing that you need to keep in mind when you do something like this. So I'll just go front to back here. Up front, kind of built up from the top line straight across to bolt my bumper on and everything.
Alright, so the radiator support just bolts right through. There's a hole straight through the frame. It's kind of hard to see from up in there, but it's pretty easy.
Alright, here's the front cab mount. Sits right above the upper control arm. There's still enough room to get it out, just barely. So the original cab mount was back here. The new cab mount is there. And it's just utilizing pieces that I fabbed up and pieces from the original truck. So rear cab mounts. Ford uses an inboard frame mounting setup, but I did an outboard. I both welded this cross brace piece underneath the cab and bolted it where the stock Ford mounts go. I used the end to make a body mount. There's a nut welded on the inside of that piece, and this bolt goes straight through and threads into it. What I did, cut off the pedestals right here, and then welded them on right here. I did have to clearance this cross member to get the shock to fit. Back here, a mount to bolt the bed to, and then along the back, there are just bolts straight through the frame. So drill holes in the top of the frame and bolt the bed down. That's it. Alright, so overall, for the wheelbase, Dodge wheelbase is about 4 inches longer than the Ford. And when I went to line everything up, you have to take that into account, and also, like I explained before, the height of the frame being high in the front and the back. You can't set the cab in the middle low down on the frame, otherwise you'll have to completely cut out the box floor to make it line up. So what I did was I set the height of the cab by mounting the box. Then I set the wheelbase by lining up the front fender with the center of the wheel. So utilizing that line correctly, I was then able to shimmy the front axle forward by using one of those zero rate type blocks. So you're actually moving the axle forward on the leaf spring by about 1.5 inches. So those blocks have different holes for the centering pin. And then to make up the rest of the gap, this has got a little bigger gap than stock between the bed and the cab, which I don't think is completely noticeable to the untrained eye, but you know, it's not as desirable, but pretty close. The rear part of the frame had to be chopped off. Probably, I think I took off like 2-3 inches off the back of the frame to get the bumper to bolt up, and I just drilled holes for the bumper. I had to do this all over again. Would I do it the same? Well, it all depends on how much money I have. I'd say to anybody watching this video, just improve upon what has already been done. That's what it's all about. I did it this way. It doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean it's good, but that's the way I did it. It's working well for me. If there are any other questions or you want to see something specifically that I did not show, just let me know and I'll get it done.